Hello, listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is the Awards Watch Podcast, episode 222. I am your executive editor, Ryan McQuade. Joining me today is our editor-in-chief, Erik Anderson.
Hello.
And our associate editor, Sophia Ciminello.
Hi, guys.
Eric's like looking for a pen and eating grapes and all this shit while we're starting this podcast. Editors only podcast, it seems like, this week, but that's okay. We're not talking about any award stuff. Though Erik yelled at me about that earlier, and don't worry, that's going to be coming sooner than most of us really need or think. But we are an awards podcast. We have to talk about that sometime soon. As
you think?
As Cannes going to be announced, is it next week?
Yes, but yeah.
Okay, so we'll find out next week.
Very soon.
All the films that'll be in contention for all
most of the films.
Most of the films, not all of them.
Because they always add some, and
yeah, they're almost little sneaky bastards.
Kind of the fun.
Well, we got his who's the president of the Cannes Film Festival? What's his name?
Thierry Fremieux.
Yeah, that guy. We got his thoughts. We got his thoughts, I think, in the Hollywood Reporter this week, and they're always if you need a good laugh, they're always something to keep you smiling during the week. But we'll get to that next week.
Terry's a funny one.
He's an interesting fellow, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We're here to talk about one of the big new releases that was this past weekend, which was Dev Patel's Monkey Man. Had its world premiere at the South by Southwest Film Festival. I was lucky to attend that along with Dan Bayer and Kevin Lee and Tyler Doster and a bunch of other wonderful people. We're going to give our thoughts on that film, and then we're going to talk about it's kind of a spinoff of a previous thing. We did do top 5 directorial debuts before, but we're going to do a more loose conversation on actor turned director debuts, since this is Patel's directorial debut, and it's been very well received. A really interesting film. We've all got the chance to see it. Erik, I'm gonna throw it over to you to give our initial thoughts and start off our Monkey Man conversation. So, what did you think of the film?
I liked it very much.
Okay, cool. Moving on.
Yep, and Sophia, off to you.
My turn.
He is really all over it as a producer, co-writer, director, and star. That's an enormous amount to put on your plate for the first time, especially for something as big as this and as clearly complicated in terms of stunts and structure and editing and cinematography and everything. So I thought it was a lot of fun. It did for me, maybe in the first act, depending on how you break the time down, because it feels more like it's done in thirds that are even amounts of time versus a traditional 3-act structure time. But like the first third did feel pretty derivative. I thought it was really over edited and overshot in a way that was just keeping us at a distance from kind of how he was shooting, fight sequences and action sequences. And once we got to his near death and falling off the building and being rescued, that's when it got really good for me. And it's funny because I had read a few thoughts from people that the middle part dragged and they didn't like it, and I was like, this is my favorite part of the film, because we get the very traditional montage of his recuperation, being rescued by strangers, and how does this fit into the story. And in this, they are a group of dejected third gender trans women in India who have seeked out shelter in this abandoned temple and hide from everybody. And they make one brief mention of it in a news broadcast, and that's pretty much our only and it was funny because watching the movie, it was it didn't make sense that they were mentioning trans people being attacked and what that has to do with this story. And that's what it has to do with this story, because they resuscitate him, bring him back to physical and mental health, and then assist him later in like the most amazing and wild and fun climax of True Detective Night Country kind of way. And so when that happens, the action then, it is purely just a revenge thing. His mother is killed and he just wants to, go through each person video game style to get to the big bad. But I felt his handle as a visual director really comes into scope in that last third, and the action is fantastic. The fights are great, and you really see all of it. And yeah, so I really liked it.
Yeah, I agree with most everything Erik said right there. Sophia, you just saw this last night.
I did.
And so your thoughts are real fresh on this. So what'd you think of Monkey Man?
Yeah, I mean, the action revenge thriller is not really my cup of tea traditionally, or the genre that I readily seek out. So this wasn't, I would say, a movie for me necessarily, but there were certainly things that I admired within it. I think that Dev Patel really came out swinging, and we saw a lot of his stylistic flourishes. And I think, Erik, I agree with you. For me, it took a little while to really get cooking. And in that, I felt a little bit lost, because for me, as someone who I don't watch a lot of action movies, I need the choreography and those set pieces and all of the action sequences to feel a bit more grounded, for me to feel very invested in these characters. And I think that the editing and where we were going, everything felt a little bit overstuffed for me until things started to crystallize. I agree. I like the middle section a lot. I also have to say, Dev Patel looks amazing in this movie. So I really, really enjoyed that. Just throughout the entire movie, really, it made me think before, like, oh, he could totally be Bond. It just makes a lot of sense. So I loved that montage of him really, I think, getting his mental and physical strength back. This is a very violent movie. It is incredibly gruesome. But I thought that, I don't know, there were some really good kills in it and some just excellent stunt work and action sequences. One of the things I will say about the revenge story, though, that I do wish, and I unfortunately just couldn't help but compare it because I had recently watched this, is that I had just rewatched The Godfather Part 2. And in that movie, in the Don Vito sequences and the flashbacks, we see Don Chicho and his men kill Vito's mother, and how he's kind of obliterated his family, and starting that way and understanding why the revenge thriller is going to take place in the way that it does, and kind of why a character would want to go after that person throughout the film and to build everything up to get to that point, I think is much more helpful and clear storytelling. That I feel like there was so much going on that kind of keeping you guessing throughout maybe didn't aid the story in the way that I hoped it would. But I think there's a lot to love here. He definitely wears, I think, a lot of influences on his sleeve. But I'll also say that what was interesting was that I saw it at a draft house, and before, they always do a little like filmmaker selects where they show you all of the different films, and the filmmaker will talk through, and one of his was Portrait of a Lady on Fire. So I think he loves I think is really romantic in his visuals, which I saw throughout this movie. And I thought that, that to me, in how he communicated that as a filmmaker, was really exciting. So I'm very, very happy to see what he does next.
Yeah, I mean, this is a movie that's kind of had a really interesting journey over the last couple of years in getting made, and then it was originally a Netflix production, and that they were going to stream it, and they were kind of mad at sort of a lot of the production, and it was how is it being made, and we're particularly just thrilled with the overall product. Jordan Peele and saw the film, really loved it, really championed Patel's directorial vision, and got Universal and Monkey Paw to buy it from Netflix, and now has had this big, gigantic theatrical release. Peele himself was actually there to introduce the film, introduce Patel on stage at South by, a place that he's very familiar as well, because that was where the premiere of Us happened in 2019, and it's a very special place, and was and it was the day after the Oscars, so Universal's was very keen on the idea of, they just want a boatload of Oscars, so let's just let's celebrate the next 2 nights with our 2 big films that they're going to have coming out this spring summer with Monkey Man, and then of course The Fall Guy, which comes out in a couple of weeks. I'm really liked the film. I was kind of surprised by it. I didn't really know what too much to go, going in. I didn't really see a lot of the trailers, because the problem with a lot of these trailers for action movies nowadays is they give you every single kill, every single, plot development that's going on in it. So I just fully immersed myself out of that experience when I saw that the trailer was going. I was like, oh, Dev Patel's making what looks like a John Wick sort of action movie. And those movies can go either way. They can go down like the Bob Odenkirk nobody route, where it's just like straight direct to like video almost, and then we put it in a theater.
I forgot that I saw that.
Wow. or it can be something that kind of subverts your expectations and does its own thing. And I think from him sort of going into sort of mythology and his visual styles from the beginning of the film, like you're mentioning that, Sophia, like there's a way in which, like, yes, some of those motivations aren't particularly clear for his character Kid in the film, but the way in which a lot of the moments when his younger version is with his mother are very, very romantic and tender, and they add this contrast to the brutality that's going on in the modern world that he's kind of grown up with, and then we see the sort of seeds of the underbelly of the underground society that everybody's having to sort of struggle to get through, while the power elite sort of have that. So it almost had like the markets even of some not just action films but sci-fi, and how there's these sort of systems built upon the oppressed. And then of course, Eric, like you were mentioning, they have these religious figures that are banned because of their sexuality, who they are, who they want to be, how they're sort of being repressed and put into these dark corners and dark alleyways, and how the police are corrupt, along with the religious figure that is essentially like the opposite of these people that take care of Patel. I thought the action was good, and I agree with you, Sophia. It kind of starts, it's a slow burn, but I kind of felt that we were going to get somewhere. And then that second middle act, when he's recovering, when we were seeing him come into his full potential and everything, I thought that was just brilliant. Sort of the most brilliant part of this film, shows the most, I think, for him as a director going forward. And then, yeah, the action in the third act is exactly kind of the blood, guts, gore everybody sort of wanted to go to. The crowd at the Paramount Theater going ballistic. The thing with the pencil, the in the elevator, every bullet, every knife, every sequence.
I love the thumb.
Yeah, oh my god! Like there was, and then also having the press fight alongside him, these trans religious figures fight alongside him, also too, to take down the bad guys, him getting his ultimate revenge, leaving it kind of on a note of, are we going to get a sequel or not? Like, I could really care less about any of that. It's sort of just in this contained sort of almost like childhood fable that they've been told for most part, kind of being recontextualized into this violent epic from Patel. It was pretty interesting from a guy who's mostly throughout his career played smaller, sort of quieter parts, more dramatic parts and everything, to see him sort of transform into this action star who looks, like Sophia said, amazing and beautiful, and my mouth like
0% body fat.
I mean,
when
like
he's holding up the buckets
of water, like, which is a traditional
God.
shot we see in like all kind of kung fu movies, and you're like, holy shit, all right, they got the money shot right there. He knew what he was getting himself into there. But no, I really liked it a lot. And it does one thing that not a lot of films have done in such a long time, like Sharplo Copley is actually like halfway decent in this movie, and it has a lot of, actors that we don't know, but they're very famous, over in India and Bollywood and in movies that are not particularly seen around here. And it just feels like, as we were watching the film, it's like, wow, this does. I wouldn't say it's. I can understand why Jordan Peele relates to it, because it feels like a labor of love from a director that doesn't get to see movies like this get made anymore, and is trying to build a little bit of an alley for him to create something that's special. And yeah, a lot of those films that you kind of mentioned, Sophia, or didn't mention, were like The Raid or Old Boy. A lot of Park Chan-wook films were very much an influence on Patel. But yeah, the Portrait of a Lady on Fire reference, I was like, wow, okay, all right, I kind of see it, I kind of get it. And I mean, he reminded me a lot on stage the night at the Paramount of like the way Ben Affleck's sort of like energy was when he was talking about Air, where like he was going to just keep talking and nobody was going to cut him off, and he was just going to keep going and going and going and going and going. And because he was so nervous, and you could feel how nervous he was, because he wanted this to land with an audience, because it was originally just going to be a streamer, and now it has different expectations. But I don't know, for a little $10 million movie, it made like $13 million this past weekend. And it's got good word. Hopefully it gets some good word of mouth, and people get to see it, and kind of really now more interested in seeing what he does next after seeing this kind of exercise. Hopefully it's not just sequels to this. Hopefully it's something different, right?
Yeah, I hope so. And I'll say too, like, I saw it at a sold out show and the crowd was really into it. So I'm glad that this found a home in theaters and didn't just kind of get dumped on a streaming platform.
Yeah, no, for sure. Eric, you gave me a little bit of a...
No, I was just thinking I hope some people didn't go into it or don't go into it with like RRR expectations, because it's not.
Yeah.
There isn't that like level of over the top. That's a different
more
kind of
more grounded story
movie. Yeah, I mean, it is more of the John Wick style, and it just kind of exists more in that realm. Yeah. But yeah, you were mentioning the other actors outside of Charlotte Copley. I loved Queenie, Ashwini Kalsakar. I thought she was such a fun badass. She was a great boss. I thought she was a lot of fun.
I love Pito Bosch, who played Alfonso, sort of like his guy to get him into this underground sort of shaky world. I thought, he what you see in that performance is what you get in real life too, because he was making a lot of jokes for Patel to kind of like calm him down at the premiere, and he was just an absolute blast.
They had kind of like a Indiana Jones short round relationship.
Yeah, kind of like you and I. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
I'm just saying. Wow. You know what I mean? So, but no, it's a really good movie. I hope people get to see it over the next couple of weeks, as it's going to be in theaters. But let's transition a little bit over to talking. Oh, and you can also read my review up on the website out of South by Southwest. Kind of talked about everything that we kind of talked about here, and maybe a little bit more. Actor turned directors in their debuts, which is the big topic of conversation this week. Not just because of Patel, but even like Peele himself too is an actor turned director who is now really one of the big.
Whoa! You're like jumping ahead. Jeez, Ryan.
Well, he is one of the biggest names.
Maybe that's on a list.
Maybe it's not. Maybe it's on a list. Maybe we'll talk about that film. But no, I think that they have the interesting connection there too. And so I'm kind of curious for you, Sophia. I'll start with you this time. Yeah. And wondering, what about actor turned director films or filmmakers or just those kinds of films? Because it's different than when you see, I think, a movie by a strictly auteur, but then when you see an actor that mostly we've known for a long time take the reins behind the camera, what about those movies to you that speak to you?
Some of my favorite movies are made by actors turned directors, so we'll talk about that today. But I think the big thing for me is just how under a microscope their movies really are to people in the industry, to people who are seeking them out, because they already have a certain type of celebrity or notoriety to them, I think that a lot of people put specific expectations or pressure on actors who decide to take a stab at filmmaking. I think for some, it works out and it has worked out far better than for others. Some are natural born directors and others aren't, but there's always personality there. And that is, I think, really exciting because, like, for some of these filmmakers we'll talk about today, I love their deranged ideas of themselves in celebrity. And that's something I don't think we necessarily see in directors who have not been in front of the camera before. So that's really exciting. I also love thinking about the times that directors decide to not act in their own movies. I think there's a big difference between some of those. So directors who decide to direct other actors and directors who cannot help but be the star in front of the camera as well. So that's, I think, where I stand. I'm excited to talk about so many of these today.
Erik?
Yeah, kind of on the similar thing. There's an interesting thing that happens, especially for an actor becoming a director for the first time, and that is the expectation of the audience that they're going to make a certain type of movie. And when, just like if you ask a director their influences or the type of movies that they like, or if there's a director that heads a film festival and they pick a movie that doesn't seem to align with anything that they've made ever. I love that. I love when an actor chooses a project to direct that, whether they're in it or not, that generally doesn't reflect like a previous expectation or style. Sometimes, yes, it's just really a vanity piece so that they can be in and really have total control over the thing that they're doing. But then you have other actors who clearly are less about themselves and more about what they have learned during their career from directors, and they have really paid attention in a way that was inspirational, and I love that, and I think we'll probably talk about quite a few of those today.
I love when you go and look into when they decide to step behind the camera and where they're at in their career. Is this the moment where they cash all the chips in to make something that they couldn't get done as just a producer, or they want to, how much control do they have? Are they writing it? Are they in it? Are they not in it? Why aren't they in it? Are they trying to subvert expectations? Are they trying to, well, the only way to get this, if I want to direct it, is I also have to star in it. You know what I mean? And then what are the stories that come from behind that? And I mean, obviously there's dozens and dozens of stories about certain films, from just, I mean, Sophia, you mentioned like Godfather 2, like The Godfather 1 is one of the most like biggest stories of all time in terms of its production and everything that goes along with it. But then if you look into that series, there's a because of that series, it spawns one of the great directors of the last 25 years. And so it's always interesting to see that some directors that were actors turn to directing because it's their salvation. It's the last chance they have to really be able to tell stories that they want, or to create an avenue of storytelling that hasn't been told before. Some of these take years to make, and doing some of the research for some of these films, like it's years and years and years. Others, it's just like maybe a one-off or two-off every now and then. Some directors only got a chance to maybe even make one film, which is a film that I'll talk about later today. And it has the sort of like just all this untapped potential that we'll never ever get to see ever again. But I don't know. It's always fascinating to see the actors turn directors too, because most audience members will then, and I know this is kind of sad to say, but like they'll gravitate towards these projects first for debuts sometimes nowadays, it seems like, rather than, because they have a name. They have a brand, so they have high expectations. They have usually a particular way in which that artist has gone into, male or female, and they have a perspective. that's maybe different than anything of their performances has ever talked about before. And then you also then just see the influences from other directors that they've leaned on, or maybe even directors that they've worked with. You know, a case in point is like, you know, somebody like Clooney is clearly was influenced by working with Soderbergh for so many years before he started dabbing into Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. And then sometimes their debut also is their best movie because they put all their heart and soul into it, and they've never, ever, ever, for some reason, been able to meet those expectations or build something from that, or they've gone back, or it was, again, just a one-off before they went back into acting. And so they always are really interesting sort of character studies. How do you want to do this? All right, let's just start talking about movies. Like, start talking about some of our favorites. So, Sophia, do you have one that you want to start off and as like one that you particularly go to a lot as a movie that you just love from an actor turned director in their debut?
I think the one that for me is the greatest of all time, like if I had to just pick one, it's Ordinary People, of course, Robert Redford's directorial debut. And the reason why I go to this, you know, it isn't just because it's this perfect movie that's this restrained family drama that has only really gotten better with time. I think it's because here Redford was extremely underestimated. I mean, he's a beautiful man, but he took
those photos behind the scenes. Well, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I
mean, you want to talk about it?
Performance he would have gotten out of me as an actor on that set, but I don't know if I would have been able to focus at all. But anyway, I think really with Redford, why I go to this example is because I think he took everything that he knew as an actor to make the best movie for actors. He wasn't only able to get some of the greatest performances we've ever seen. I mean, Donald Sutherland, Robert De Niro has your Oscar. That might be controversial to say, but it's the way that I feel. I think that, you know, in order to make a movie like this successful, you have to work with actors in the way that he did. You know, knowing Mary Tyler Moore as someone who's known for her comedic talent, for her warmth, for that Midwestern quality that she has, and knowing he could flip that and that she had a darker side underneath that he could pull from her and that she could feel comfortable getting into. Thinking about, you know, Judd Hirsch and how he was in Taxi, and then seeing that as working in the role of a psychiatrist. Timothy Hutton, that performance, I mean, I think he had to be so comfortable in that role. And in the oral history of Ordinary People, which is great, please read it, it's on Entertainment Weekly, but Hutton described how Redford communicated with him and how he made him feel so relaxed. And to me, the way that a director can make their actors feel is just so important. And when you hear feedback like that, and Sutherland had similar things to say, I feel like that just shows that, you know, Redford, I think that he didn't also stretch himself too far here. He made exactly what he could make, and he made the best possible version of that. So Ordinary People, my go-to example. I know everyone has heard me talk about it before, but it's just the best place for me to start, really.
It's a goddamn masterpiece. And it's also the other example of what makes, I think, these films work the best, especially out the get-go for actor turned directors, is that they know really the hardest part that the audience is mostly going to see, which is the acting. And so they're able to get these really great, sometimes even specific performances from these actors that we've been around. And it's also a great chance to highlight, I think. You see a lot of actor turned directors that we're going to talk about today. They highlight not just themselves, but they also highlight other people in their films too, and kind of prop them up. You know, to have like Mary Tyler Moore, who's like one of the queens of television comedy, to play a stone cold bitch throughout this entire movie, and like Donald Sutherland to play this very passive father while he's dealing, you know, they're dealing at the aftermath of the death of their son, and having this newcomer in Timothy Hutton sort of kind of really steal the show and have these scenes opposite all these veteran actors along. And yeah, Judd Hirsch is amazing and coming off of Taxi as well. It's very different for a lot of them in their careers, and even the start of Hutton's career. So But to be able to kind of just like bounce off of all those things. And yeah, I mean, there's just moments that we've talked about a lot. Like I think of one of the scenes that I always think of, there's two from the film. It's one, it's the flashback sequence and sort of the zoom in on the only time we see Mary Tyler Moore's face smile throughout the entire film, and how she's sort of fawning over her dead son as if like she's more than just like loves him. There's sort of this central attraction that she has to him. And it's really just, it's a memory that if you are playing that through Hutton's memory, and as the years will go on, it becomes a nightmare. And then, of course, I think of like the family photo sequence in the film, which is just fucking one of the most uncomfortable sequences you'll ever watch in a movie, and of just this family falling apart. And yeah, it's a movie that people kind of, I don't know, that like it feels like they've reevaluated it, or it wasn't as, because it's like Raging Bull that's up against it, and everybody like flips over that when it's like just a fine Scorsese movie. It's not one of his best, but Ordinary People is like, it's clearly one of my favorites. Eric, do you like Ordinary People? I've never actually talked to you about Ordinary People, I don't believe.
Yeah, I guess we probably haven't. Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's fantastic. I do think that it has for so long suffered in the shadow of the feeling that Raging Bull deserved more. And every time, like, especially when we're talking about an Oscar conversation, because the same thing happened like when Kevin Costner did Dances with Wolves. And also, because that was Scorsese again, but it was this concept that first time actor turned directors somehow had this weird advantage. And I don't really know or believe that is exactly true. It's either a good movie or it's not a good movie. But I do think that as well loved and respected as Ordinary People has always been, that after all this time, we're sort of finally able to talk about it really just on its own, and hopefully a little bit less in comparison to Raging Bull, because it deserves it. And for all of those reasons, for the foresight to take somebody like Mary Tyler Moore and her persona and give her something the opposite of what her fan base knew of her. And that was a huge risk. It was a huge risk for her, and certainly was for Redford. But again, just one of those actors that just paid so much attention to everything around them. And but it's not like really anything that he had done. I can't think of Ordinary People and think of, oh, this is sort of like this, because it's just really not at all.
No.
And I love that. That's my favorite kind of thing when talking about this. Like I mentioned, is when an actor does something unexpected from what we know of their acting history. I love this movie.
Yeah. You got one you want to talk about, Eric?
I do. It might feel really strange because I wasn't thinking about it so much until this morning. And this is Spinal Tap from Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner.
On my list too.
That's such an interesting movie and everything, because of what we've known of Reiner at the time and everything.
Yeah. I mean, obviously a television actor, primarily, All in the Family, one of the biggest sitcoms of all time.
Playing like the punching bag for the most part on that show.
Yeah. And to go out of the gate with a mock documentary that really, this is 84. This is the blueprint for tons of films, for everything Christopher Guest did. And he's in it, obviously. Yeah. But talk about an inspiration for Guest's entire filmography, like after this. It's amazing. It's extremely funny. It is deadly accurate. But I think what it does is, sort of the thing that Guest does as well, and what a really, really good mock style documentary does, or even something like, you know, Parks and Recreation, where you're sort of in that, or Abbott Elementary. You have to have an affinity and a love of the thing that you're making fun of first. Otherwise, it's just kind of mean-spirited. I mean, really good satire and a really good spoof lives in the thing that it's satirizing, and it has to like it first, and it has to know about it too. And I think that's what Spinal Tap does so extremely well. And I love that there were rock stars that saw it and loved it because they were just impressed that it wasn't real, that they weren't just a real band, and because everything about it just tracked. It's extremely quotable. The whole turning up to 11 is just a vernacular phrase that is always used, and even if you didn't even understand or know its origin, you still use it because you understand what it means. And it's fascinating too that right after this, he had such an insane string. He owned the 80s and early 90s.
There's like one movie. There's like one movie right after.
Yeah,
it,
I mean, there's a North.
He goes on one
It's
of
a
the.
The
crazy
Sure Thing is a good
yeah.
movie, though.
Yeah,
Sure Thing is a good
Sure
movie.
Thing's a good movie, but he goes on a run that is one of the great director runs of all time because it's
And
just hit
such
after
a
hit after hit.
And it's a fascinating example of a director who was constantly subverting any style. There is no through line to Reiner's work, from this to Princess Bride, American President, Few Good Men, Misery. That is insane. It's When Harry Met Sally.
When Harry Met Sally, was
Stand by Me. I mean,
Stand by Me.
He has hallmarks of almost every genre. If you looked at the history of film, he has among the very best.
I was just going to say
genre.
He's got
And
like a
that
top
is
20
insane.
film for comedy, rom-com,
Yeah,
suspense, drama. If you
coming of age,
courtroom drama. Political.
It's crazy.
It's insane. And then for the next 30 years after that, he's decided to make schlock. You know what I mean? And
well, I pretend that it ends like
it really does. American President
Good Men
does end it.
American President.
And he's got he does make an ultimate AARP movie with the bucket list. So there is that.
Yes,
Oh
and as it would happen, there is a Spinal Tap sequel coming, which I'm not like super excited about as an idea, but
yeah.
No.
Here we go.
Yeah, here we go. Not thrilled about that either. No, but it's a very good movie, and it's one of the classic comedies of all time, and I love it. I mean, Sophia, you had it on your list too.
Yeah. In addition to everything, Eric, that you said, I feel like the reason I put it on my list is because satire is really hard to pull off. And I think that a lot of people try and end up completely flopping because their touch just is not right. You have to have like you have to have the right amount of subtlety, but also, like you mentioned, the care for the subject. You have to really like it deep down, I think, to be able to make fun of it. And I think this is it's very witty, it's very smart, and just fun. And this was a movie recommended to me by my dad, actually, because he said he was shocked that I had never seen it. And he was like, this is one of the funniest movies ever that exists. You have to watch it. And he's completely right. I think it really does. It holds up. And like you were talking about, just with the Reiner run, nothing is the same. And that is, I think, what you always want to see with these films.
You could say it's like a journeyman, but then it doesn't. But it's like that's a 50-50 coin when you're a journeyman.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's like it's the Ridley Scott thing too. If you have a really good screenplay, then it masks maybe any problems. And the guy hasn't picked a good screenplay in like 30 years, just kind of like how Ridley Hasn't picked
Well,
one in
I'm
a
worried
while.
for Gladiator 2.
Yeah, I'm worried so bad, Eric.
Yeah.
Poor Paul. We're praying for you, Paul.
I have a prayer circle like 24 hours a day.
We're praying around a Sweet
We're
Greens
praying at
near
Sweet
you.
Green.
I want to. It's this one's more. Well, it's not recent, but it's one from the '90s, and it's a movie that I hadn't seen in a long time, and I rewatched it actually today in preparation for this. And it doesn't always have to be a big star. It could be somebody that's been making movies for a while, and a smaller, lesser known actress, and then finally decides I'm going to make a movie that's got my voice and a story that's familiar to me, and I think that's what Cassie Lemons did with Eve's Bayou, which is a movie that I just love this sort of Southern Gothic personal drama from Lemons, and it clearly is I think her best film, and one that she's kind of made some interesting films, but nothing as personal and specific as this. It's got these incredible performances, from Samuel L. Jackson, and Journey Smollett and this entire ensemble really. And, it for many of y'all that don't know it's about like this family that sort of lives in the bayou, and it's all, they're holding all these secrets. And it's this movie about what we perceive we see and what we choose to believe is real, and how those feelings can sort of eat alive a family from the inside. And I don't know, I just watching that movie and seeing it, she had worked with Jonathan Demme, and she had worked with all these great directors, and she had made sort of she was in the original Candyman, so she had made some horror films too. It has all these sort of influences, and then yes, also she made her acting debut in School Days too, so she's worked with Spike and having these giant ensembles and knowing a lot of these actors and actresses that play parts in this movie. And I was just completely blown away by the visual language that she had, and then Terrence Blanchard's score alongside it. We don't talk about it. It's very underrated in this movie. And if it's on, you can buy it. It's in the Criterion Collection. I think you can get it on 4K now. Just a beautiful transfer of this kind of wonderful debut that was a big hit. It was the indie movie of 1997. It was made on like a $3-4 million budget, but it made $15 million at the box office, which shows that there was a voice then and still is now for cinema for Black audiences. So do you guys have this on your list? Was this one that you guys thought
It's
about?
on mine. Yeah.
It's on mine too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. It's one where the funny thing about this one is that when I first saw it, it was when I was in college, and I remember after I watched it, I immediately went to the library website to find the book, because I thought it was so rich and amazing that I thought there has to be a novel.
Yeah, it's like
this has to be based on a novel, but
it's not. No, it's like
it's that, I think,
it's culture and stories,
well developed, that you almost can't believe that it wasn't a book first. And I have many on my list that were books first actually, but this one, I think, it is her best movie for sure. But like you said, Ryan, it's the visual language and those performances that she gets out of her actors. It's a phenomenal debut, I think.
Yeah. Eric?
Yeah, I love this movie. It's one of those, it came out in 97 that was just overshadowed by an incredible amount of bigger, more talked about films. And it's unfortunate because it is so good. And this cast is Debbie Morgan. Oh my God.
Oh, ooh.
Diane Carroll.
Diane Carroll. It's a absolutely fantastic cast. And it's an interesting movie for us to be talking about in this list, because while we just talked about Rob Reiner's post Spinal Tap career being so many huge, fantastic, gorgeous hits in that period, that just was not the case for Lemons.
I like Talk to Me. That's just a entertaining
yeah.
little film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's a pretty by the book standard sort of like
Mhm.
of this lesser known sort of disc jockey. Cheadle gives an amazing performance in that movie.
Yeah.
But it's really, I mean, Harriet. We all remember Harriet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
a movie and it exists, and I mean it's
Yeah.
well, it
And
This
was
is funny. It's a movie that
no,
exists.
it does. It totally exists. And then she did.
the
Didn't she
Whitney
do
Houston.
the
Whitney
Whitney?
Houston.
I want to dance with somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. I want her to be
Yeah.
out of that like biographical space. I think
Yeah.
that when it's kind of pre-written or you have that material for you that doesn't allow for maybe as much creativity. I don't know. It's hard.
It is, and she makes and that's the other thing too is like I want to dance with somebody, which was supposed to be
Forgot that she did
supposed to be some big hit. Audiences were really gonna just based off trailer reactions and stuff, love, and then it just completely flopped. It was flop city. It was a $45 million movie it only made 58. So
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
kind of But I agree with you. I would like her to go, maybe back to the basics, something smaller. She might
Like
end
Gothic
up.
style is so
Yeah,
good.
she might end up.
I think
having
I
to
think
do that,
if
which
she,
is kind of,
if she could have the opportunity, because this is about opportunity more than anything else,
Yeah.
to kind
Mhm.
of go back to something closer to Eve's Bayou, I think that I think maybe we could get something really great from her again. I feel like she got kind of stuck in maybe the biopic-y thing, because there is Harriet and Whitney Houston, and then the Madam C.J. Walker series, which was okay, but just very, very by the numbers. And one of the great things about Eve's Bayou is how not by the numbers it is, and it just is such a original work, and I feel like she's not kind of really been allowed to do much original work, and that is the scope of opportunity for women of color directors is very, very, very small.
Yeah.
And if you are not Ava DuVernay, you're not,
Or Gina
you're
Prince
not
Bythewood.
you're not the top on the list of getting those premier projects. So I think, and I hope that maybe she can find or develop something that feels more like her.
She did have the Caveman's Valentine, which is an all-time stinkeroo movie in 2001, and it was a $13 million budget movie that made $687,000, and it was and it had Sam Jackson. It was a novel adaptation and everything, and then it was kind of dead on
I think
arrival.
what happened too.
It took her some time, and
I think what happened too is that it didn't get any Oscar nominations, but it was Roger Ebert's #1 film. He championed the shit out of it, and I think I do think that helped it for visibility for sure. But it
puts a set of expectations then also going forward of like, well, Eve's Bayou is like, Ebert thinks it's a masterpiece. Others may think it too. It's been reevaluated. It's the top indie film of the year. What do you got next? And sometimes that can be a blessing and a curse going forward.
And what happens a lot of the times with directors who have these indie hits is that they get catapulted right into a blockbuster territory.
No shit.
Which that wasn't really happening at that time, but it became very, very common not that many years later. So, I mean, it happened to Ava DuVernay. So, I would hope it was, it's not anything like that, and maybe just something more in this vein.
Yeah, no, for sure. But check out Eve's Bayou. Still fantastic movie. Yeah, for sure. All right. What do you want to talk about next? What's up? Anybody?
What's really funny going through some of these too is realizing how many second films were better than their first.
Yeah.
And I had to really kind of
You had to hone it in, didn't you?
I had to really check and make sure, because like Robert Duvall had this movie that he directed in like the 80s, which just was, I pretend that doesn't exist, and that The Apostle was his first narrative feature, and I would have loved to have that on the list. I know we talked about Jordan Peele. I'm sure we can expand.
I mean, if you want to expand on Get Out, which is one of the bigger films of the last 10 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
let's talk about Get Out.
Let's talk about Get Out. Because I think that
was such a perfect example of subverting who this person is as an actor and what kind of movie they would make, because there isn't really anything in Key and Peele exactly that has this in it. Everything is such an well, you know what I mean. It isn't like
there are vague hints at, but obviously everything turns into a joke, a bit, a part of
because it's a couple of minutes long, and it's not that trauma based like Get Out is.
Yeah, and I do think that there are elements of Get Out that are completely hilarious and satirical, and it is and I think that that's the case for all of Peele's films, to be honest. And
everything Allison Williams does is the height of comedy.
Yeah. And
she should have been nominated.
She should have, and he also like Redford in a way with Mary Tyler Moore. He knew who Allison Williams was in Girls and as a persona, and played with that so perfectly in Get Out. She is just at times feels like a caricature of the Marnie character in Girls, and at other times just feels like every worst white woman you've ever known.
Yeah.
So she's perfect. The cereal, the keys.
The cereal.
The cereal.
I mean, the brilliance of this too is casting somebody like Kaluuya to play sort of this audience surrogate going through this crazy, fucked up, stupid world that they live in. And the brilliance of that performance is every single just like reaction to dialogue and just images that he's seeing. And and the idea of the sunken place is, visually speaking, one of the, I mean, for a debut, it announces him so brilliantly as, oh, this isn't, Mad TV Key and Peele guy anymore. This is a director, and I love the fact that Peele has refused to put himself in front of the camera, but allowed himself completely to feel seen within the film. His voice is so strong from the get-go, and this movie was a phenomenon. And it's like, what, made on a $5 million budget? Like, he could have probably got more, but he didn't need it nor get it. And his movies have gotten bigger ever since. I know some people still, I never got to see this with an audience in a theater. And I've seen his other films since. But people were losing their fucking minds from the moment it was at Sundance, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then just kind of went all the way into theaters a couple months later, and then the whole year. I mean, like, even hearing, like, I remember it was at the I think at a panel with all the directors, and Paul Thomas Anderson talking about like seeing it in a theater and weirdly feeling like like a connection to home in the most uncomfortable way possible. And and having like Del Toro and others that year praise this specifically beautiful, interesting commentary that has aged really, really well over the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it really
it's
has.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
Sophia.
no, I was just going to say the theatrical experience for this, I think it's one of the great memories of that movie, really, because everyone was seeing it, everyone was talking about it. And I do think that Jordan Peele with Get Out, this is one of the cases of a director who, with their directorial debut, it just comes out fully formed. We know who this person is. We know what we are maybe going to see from them. And I think with his later features, Nope is my favorite of his. I think he's kind
Mine
of
too.
elevated the stakes, really, and just he's taken what he learned that worked so well on Get Out, and he's used the power that he got from that because it was such a hit to make whatever he wants. And he feels so at home in the horror sci-fi space, but he also infuses those movies with such smart commentary that makes them, I think, great films of their moments for sure, but also ones that will hold up really forever.
He's got the pulse of everything right now. He really
Yeah,
does.
I do love that he's the opposite Rob Reiner. He has a lane that he is extremely comfortable and really good in, and I'm like, keep going.
Yeah.
This is good.
Well, it's like the I guess it's like, everyone tries to weirdly compare him to Shyamalan. So I'm assuming that his next movie is going to be The Village and start dividing people. But hey, go for it. Fuck it. Why not? I mean, he's got those sensibilities of Shyamalan, but also John Carpenter and even Wes Craven to a certain extent with his horror background and having fun. Like you can just tell that he's having a joy making these, but he's slowly, as each one of these movies has come out, he's sort of unraveled a little bit more and more. Though Nope, he was like distinctively trying to get you to figure out the meanings behind it, and he didn't want to really divulge too much because I think he stated he did a little bit maybe too much with us, which such an actor thing to just want to talk. But I'd love to talk. I mean, I want to hear Erik's opinion on a movie that we actually talked about a couple of weeks ago on Director Watch, which is kind of a perfect segue to talk about Sofia Coppola's The Virgin Suicides, which is one of the great debuts of all time, let alone just an actor turn. And Jay and I talked about it on that show, just being like this place for her to escape. She had such a distinctive way of when she read that book that she saw the movie play out, and obviously in terms of she had the immense backlash, like I alluded to earlier, with her performance in The Godfather 3. Erik, I know I think Sophia on this upcoming week of Director Watch has opinions on The Virgin Suicide that we'll be releasing later this week. But for yourself, Erik, I'm curious what you think about what that film in terms of Sofia Coppola's whole career, but then also, yeah, it feels like an undeniable debut, right?
It does. This was tough though. It was not on my list, and the reason it.
Rude.
Let me tell you why. The reason it was not on my list,
because of my reason too, might be the same,
is because everybody else had a history and were known as actors, and becoming a director after a period of time as an actor. That's where I was at. And
okay,
for me, I mean, I definitely love this movie and want to talk about it, but I didn't put Coppola in that same group as an actor with any type of longevity before really, going to the other side of the camera.
So you don't count her role in the background of Phantom Menace as a star-turning performance, is what you're saying.
I'm just saying, if Keira Knightley had directed a film, then yeah, she could also have the same thing. So,
what a switch! You know what I mean? In that movie, and what a twist.
So yeah, but that's the only reason why, is that I sort of kind of I attached a little bit of a
I counted
line,
it.
I guess, to
but
myself for that.
I get it. I counted it. I think again it goes back to expectations. She had such strong high expectations. She wanted to be an artist. She wanted, she did commercials, and she did some films, and obviously Godfather 3 was not the way she or anybody wanted it to probably turn out. But, she then made the transition and moved over here. And I don't think she really was looking for it either, but that book fell right into her lap, and she saw it distinctly. And then she also has that knack that I think a lot of other actor directors, and I think that's why her and Dunstan and she's been able to find so many young actresses is just her sensibility of knowing. I've said this a couple times on the show for the series already. It's like it's her ability to kind of know what she wants as a director, but then also what she wants these actresses of that age to do that she, unfortunately, it's like a prevention. Like she is trying to prevent in these performances sometimes, the mistakes that happened on Godfather 3 and maybe others. And that's not necessarily always at the front, but it's definitely probably subconsciously way in the back. And that's why she's one of the best directors ever at finding and discovering talent that we have ever seen, and especially in the modern era. And so, I mean, you're welcome, Alex Garland. Like, your female-led cast is coming up for Civil War is all because of Sophia Coppola. Really, when you think about it,
it's Marie Antoinette and Priscilla.
Yeah,
I am so glad that she was able to recover from the trauma of Godfather 3, because I remember that really, really, really well. And I think, I mean, at the time felt even more savage than how it's talked about now. It was so unrelentingly cruel, and she was really, really young. And it was, I mean, it was her father's fault, and there was no really escaping it. I don't think anybody that wasn't his daughter would have had quite the negative reaction. Not the weight of it. It was really bad. But for her to be able to really kind of come together and turn into such an identifiable auteur like she is, and again, this is more like Jordan Peele and completely not like Rob Reiner. She has a style. She has a visual storytelling style that is so identifiable. Not quite, Wes Anderson like, but in a way you can. Almost everything is a dreamy haze, and it just sort of always feels like you are caught between being awake and being in a dream. And I absolutely love it. I love this so much. It was so bracing, not shocking, but it was so bracing even at the time.
Yeah.
I love it.
This is one of my favorite movies of 99, which is one of the best movie years ever.
We keep alluding to it. We're going to do a big show on it this year.
I'm ready. So I talked a lot about this movie on the last time we did directorial debuts. Mm-hmm. And the reason I didn't or wasn't planning on talking about it as much today is because I always feel so bad thinking of Sophia as an actor first, because I don't think that is what she wanted or really the identity I associate with her. I think though that she's done such an amazing job pivoting away, because now when people think of Sophia Coppola, they think of that aesthetic and style that she has, because the Sophia that we know now was there in 99. That's the craziest thing about it. And she proved, right, that she isn't just her dad's daughter, right? She has her own very clear voice. And what is so striking to me about this movie, I need to write about it, I know, but it's like a scary process, because I think it would be really long and a lot would probably come out, because it's just there's so much to it. But I think that what she understands so well is this teenage ennui and boredom that we see, but also this suburban fascination with death.
Yes.
That space for you to go to for your very first film that's so brave and so bold. And I think she always is committed and ready to show us what teenage girls experience, what they think in those hours alone in their bedrooms. But really what she's showing us too is how the boys narrating actually shows you what men miss in all of their commentary about women.
Correct. Jay and I talked a lot about that on that Director Watch episode that came out a couple weeks ago. And yeah, that's one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far, because we really when you really look at it through, obviously, those boys' perspective, it's completely dangerous.
Such a smart way to do it too.
Yeah, and then that scene at the kind of community party at the end of the film, like as if that through this tragedy, life goes on. Who gives a shit? It's just another piece of news, a piece of gossip, but yet there's a family that's been destroyed at the hands of it. It's it's a pretty fucking great movie.
I think she benefits so greatly too from being in the shadow of such a famous parent director and having her style be completely different than him, because I think about Jennifer Lynch and Boxing Helena and how that just felt like a David Lynch movie, but not
it's like
a good
Or like
one. I like it.
Cronenberg.
Yeah, it's all these fucking Cronenbergs coming out here making their
Yes.
dad shit, and it's like, just make your own thing because your dad's making his own thing, and it's still great.
Like
already done that,
you're
yeah.
you're already going to be compared to your parent if you choose to go down the same vocation that they do. So
Why do it?
why would you want to do something that makes that comparison so easy to dissect and to criticize? So I think she's just a really, really, really smart filmmaker.
I really don't like Brandon Cronenberg. I'm sorry.
I didn't like Infinity Pool at all.
I didn't like his.
But I mean, this is an interesting.
No, you're right, because that history can. Some people will subvert and go down a way in which they're trying. I wouldn't say she's going out of her way to be her dad, because her dad went through different phases in his career and was, and not, his visual language sort of changed through the different decades, given the times and, how the studios evolved from the 70s to the 80s and then to the 90s. I mean, the fucking guy made Jack, so let's not, so there's that. But then there are other people that just are like, oh yeah, they learn everything they've learned from their dad or their mom or whoever, and then they just end up being pale imitations or uninteresting voices stuck in a void there's a new, like, Cronenberg, his daughter's making a new film that's coming out, and I'm like, it looks so much like a movie that he would make. It doesn't, like your dad would make. It doesn't ring true to something that you actually want to do, and it's
How many hatchlings does he have?
I mean, like, seriously,
how many more I can take?
Yeah. Well, that's like Nancy Meyers, her daughter Hallie.
Oh my God.
Myers Shire, who made that Home Again, the Reese Witherspoon movie. That was just like, it was like the worst type of Nancy Meyers knockoff.
So that movie
and Reese knockoff together.
Reese knockoff. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like one of her like book club movies come to life. You know what I mean? Like, and it's really badly shot too on those, like, just like student cameras. It's like shit.
So
it's so
it's
bad.
so sad. Anyway, Virgin Suicides, great film. A+ cast.
The cast.
A+ cast. Josh fucking Hartnett. Thank you very much. That
Trip
shot
Fontaine,
of him in the
what a character name for him.
The shot of him in the pool. My God. We used to be a society, folks. Let me tell
That
you
hair, my God.
Ooh,
it's like top 10 like movie hair of all time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and speaking of Shyamalan, his daughter's making a movie this year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Weirdly enough, I'm more excited for that. Yeah, that'll be another episode. And Shyamalan's working with Hartnett, right?
Yeah.
Sophia alerted that to me. I can't wait for that.
Yes. The connections are
Conflicted.
endless.
Conflicted.
Shyamalan's a tough one for me. I have trouble.
All right, Sophia, throw out a title.
All right, we are going to go to one of the most interesting people ever, I think, to exist in the film industry for me.
I think we know
that's
where we're
Warren
going.
Beatty.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about Reds, his solo directorial debut.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Cheating a
God
little.
damn it. See, that's one of the ones I was looking at going, oh, can I just pick Reds and
Yeah, you could fucking pick Reds.
Heaven Can Wait?
Yeah.
Let's talk about Reds.
All right,
I'm
go
not
ahead.
talking about Heaven Can Wait. We're going to talk about Reds because I think that with Reds, like this is just it's an odd movie. It's one of my favorite movies ever made. But I think what's so strange about it is just the fact that he wanted to make it, that he said, I want to make this full American epic. It is an epic romance. It's very political. He stars in it with his then girlfriend, Diane Keaton, who I think is just transcendent in the movie. I could watch another 3 hours of her. I always feel like I can relate to Louise, just like a lot of Diane characters, but really she's the one for me. But I think I watched this for the first time during COVID, actually, like 2020. And people had recommended it to me for years, and it
feels so much like a movie that you've seen since like child.
This is so Sophia coded.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It is. It's such a Sophia movie, but
down to the wardrobe and the hats and everything.
Yeah, I know. Just her personality, like going across the snow for this man. It's everything. But
you would fall in the snow for fucking Warren Beatty, wouldn't you, Sophia? Like,
I totally would, especially like a liberal Warren Beatty. Who's
know how many times this guy's fucked me over, and yet here I am, just trekking out in the snow.
Back again. I might have this poet Eugene O'Neill on the side, but
oh my god,
Nicholson. I'm committed to Jack. No, I think but in that watch, it was one of those movies where I just felt like, how have I never seen this before? How had I avoided it or not, taking the time to watch it for so long, because it just felt like the perfect movie for me. And then I ended up seeing it in theaters pretty shortly after in a series called Intimate Epics at BAM. And I think Intimate Epic really is like the perfect way to describe it, because it feels so big and so bold, but it feels also very intimate. And I love the framing device that he uses, these interviews of real people from the time, because I think that what he does with that is he shows that, these people sharing their memories and all these moments that might not make sense, might not be accurate. Like, that is how history is remembered. And that's actually how these stories are told. And he understands that for all of its power and for all of its danger. And that, to me, is something we've seen, I think, over time in documentaries and documentary shorts. And I always say that today, if someone tried to make this, it would end up as some horrid, bloated prestige TV series. And now,
I think there could be one guy that could do it. One guy I think could pull this off. But anyway,
I'm curious who you say. We can, because I
think more than one could.
I think that the trickiest part here, based on the examples that I have, who would try to make Reds, can't write women or don't really know what to do with women. And this movie really knows what to do with Louise as a character. And that, I think, is its power, in that Warren Beatty really gives time to her. Like, she is the one you leave the movie thinking about. And I love it. I think it's so powerful. It's so of its time, but it holds up just brilliantly. And I think that so many directors have referenced it and have tried to make their Reds or want to make their Reds, but I don't know if they actually could today. I don't know if it would get the green light.
Oh, see, my person wasn't, because I texted Sophia because I watched this last night, and because I had 3.5 hours to spare, and I hadn't seen it in like 10, 15 years or whatever. And I fucking loved it every minute. I had like a big grin on my face, because this is like the kind of movie that Erik and Sophia know I love. A big, sweeping, unabashed epic. Like, this is like, if we're gonna do a romance epic that should, that is like nominated for Best Picture or Best Picture winner or whatever, like, I'll take this over Titanic any fucking day of the week.
Me too. This is my Titanic.
Yeah, this is my Titanic. This fucking rules.
They have great chemistry.
Yes, well, it's what you were talking about to me in text. It was just like, yeah, they're dating, so you buy this romance, and they're both fucking fantastic, as opposed to.
But that doesn't always work.
It doesn't always work, but
often it's a disaster.
Yeah, but when
Thankfully it worked for them.
it worked for them.
Yeah.
Like, I know I texted like Sophia and saying that like the interview style that he uses is it's like kind of like Nolan kind of rips it off a little bit, and others have too. Like Nolan uses it in Interstellar to kind of talk about the device of them traveling back and forth and Murph and that storyline, and there were a couple of other films that I thought of, but like no, I mean like Bradley Cooper would totally make this fucking movie. Like that's not even a question because
I wanted to talk about him a bit too.
Because like
we will.
We will talk about Bradley Cooper here probably right after this, but no, like because like. You know, you see the Gaga character, you see Carrie's character, Maestro, and you see the way in which, like, this is a perfect example of, like, yes, Warren Beatty is front and center. He's the writer, director, and the star of this movie, but the movie is all on the shoulders of Diane Keaton. And it's this titanic performance, and it is this just back and forth. No pun intended.
Is she better than Winslet, Eric?
Oh, not even fucking close. But no,
she would have shared that armoire. I know that.
But no, I love that. You know, some people could probably call this tedious, the fact that they go back and forth and their love and everything, but that's just the time and the history and the politics and both of their very strong idealistic, you know, intentions and who they are as people clashing within this relationship. And then, yeah, I mean, like the first half of this film, you have this, I mean, scary yet kind of tender performance from Jack Nicholson as Eugene O'Neill in there too, and he's kind of weaseling his way in there, and it's super sad at the same time, like, you know, that he's in love with her, but she's drawn to Jack, and that sequence when they're in Russia and he goes to find her to get her to report on the war, and
Makes
then
me cry.
It goes back to then it flips in the second act after the intermission of her going to find him after he's deserted to try to get the Communist Party to be certified by the Russian leaders. I mean, like it's big, it's beautiful. It feels as if like, you know, it is of a bygone era because like Beatty and Keaton and all of them, they were in the era of these big, you know, 3-hour long epic films, and it was one of the last films to like have the intermission and really get fully pushed forward by the studios, you know, before everything kind of turned into fucking Lethal Weapon and Beverly Hills Cop. And so it's shortly released after Heaven's Gate, and it's not one of the reasons why those kind of epics went away for a while, but it definitely is. It's one of the last like great ones of that era, and it's a fucking masterpiece. I love that movie. Eric,
like Reds? I know I love Reds. I love Reds, and it is. I'm not sure if it's exactly a product of its era, other than the subject and the topic of communism and Cold War and the proximity
the weirdness of going behind
was really at like a height, but as a storytelling device, that wasn't really that common. So it was pretty unique for 1981 to use that as a device.
In the Reagan administration, for Christ's sake, they screened the film at the fucking White House. Like it's
but it was essentially made before that because the post-production time was like Scorsese level.
Yeah.
It was so long.
Imagine us covering it. Is Beatty's movie coming out or not?
Seriously.
I would have been insufferable about this.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And this, I mean, it's just also one of those like really weird, fun things too, where it's like, yes, it won Best Director and Maureen Stapleton won and the cinematography won, but it was then Jared to Fire one, and that was like, how did the fuck did that
happen? Yeah.
But you know, it's, you know, what if this had been completed earlier and it was the year before? You know, you just every year is its own thing. But it's there hasn't really been, when I think about this type of scope, it was very like since the 60s, like a Dr. Zhivago.
I was going to say a David Lean sensibility too.
Yeah.
The anything that's over 3 hours is kind of sort of get like almost you're going to immediately make those connections to those movies of the 50s and 60s that, going to a theater for an entire afternoon was an event.
Yeah.
And that's what you did really for the day. And
Godfather 2 in the 70s.
Yeah. And this was like that. And it just didn't feel like anything else. But yeah, just again, one of those things where even though, yes, he did Heaven Can Wait, you're looking at a director that has learned and culled together 20 plus years of working with other top notch directors and actors, because this lineup of actors is second to none. No. It is so
it's kind of like
stellar.
It's kind of like Gene Hackman in like 2 scenes, and that's it. And you're like, wait, what the fuck is Gene Hackman doing here? It's like a favor. You're calling in all your favors. I mean, I'll talk about somebody else that I feel like
it's so cool,
does that a lot. But it's great. It's like nobody does that shit anymore, where they're just like, let me call my buddies and just get them to be like this one scene off guy, and and then and I'm not going to really pay them anything, but it'll work for the story. I mean, like, yeah, when I was watching the film this time, I was like, wow, like from the editing standpoint, at least the first like 30 to 45 minutes of this movie, I was like, good Lord, Warren Beatty did learn a lot from working with Robert Altman. Because, like, holy shit, like, it was like, it's like they're here in New York and they're screwing here and they're having coffee here and they're doing this and the dialogue's overlapping and it's everything. I was like, oh, okay, this would definitely qualify if we were talking about it back then as like the most direction, but it's also like the best direction on the planet as well, too.
Yeah. Well, and like with McCabe and Mrs. Miller, like taking something that's so epic yet character driven and also really subversive when you think about that genre previously. Like, it feels of its time, but also like it can really stretch across the bounds of time. I think you're right. I think he definitely learned a lot from Altman. This is also my favorite Nicholson, which I know is a very hot take considering all of his work,
love that.
but it is my favorite. I think it is so different from everything else he's done. I think he is like so, I don't know, that he just captures the essence of Eugene O'Neill, this character. He's so heartbreaking, and that you really believe him as an artist. He's so like tender in the movie, just completely different than the loud Nicholson we get in a lot of movies later on.
I see. I thought like Chinatown
and earlier.
Your Nicholson.
Look, I love Chinatown more than most movies, but this is the Nicholson I always go to as my favorite one.
I love that.
He is great. I don't think that's I mean, it's a great choice. Yeah. I mean, you could say probably like 10 or 15 films are your favorite Nicholson.
I know, right? There's so many options, but this
is just
there's something about it.
I was just watching him.
He's a little overrated, but all right.
Well, so are you. But we keep you around. No, he's one of the greatest. He's probably one of the top 5 greatest super movie stars we've ever had. Yeah, he's not many people could do what he does in that movie. Just show up in like maybe 3 or 4 scenes and just deliver.
No, that's why he's so good in this.
Yeah.
He's so much more understated. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He's great when he's understated.
I love him in 5 Easy Pieces. I could run down his whole filmography right now and just talk about every one of these movies, but I won't.
Oh, good.
But I could. What a show that would be. Do y'all want to talk about 12-time Oscar nominee Bradley Cooper?
The transition from Warren Beatty to Bradley Cooper only feels right.
Okay.
It is the natural transition.
And then we can go to Streisand, maybe.
I was going to say we could go to, we can go to Streisand and then somebody else too. Kind of in the same ballpark. Anyway, A Star is Born. Where were you when you saw the trailer for the 600th time in theaters?
Yeah, one of
the great trailers of all time, right?
One of the great trailers. And I mean, the reason also why Shallow works so well in the movie in the way that it does is because of the trailer. It is like when you are waiting for, I don't know, the best moment in any kind of movie, really, but you just are waiting for
that ball to drop.
Matches. Yeah. I think the build up really works. And yeah, I mean, for me, as a Bradley Cooper fan and someone who had always believed in him, even when he was in like the A Team and things like that, this was very exciting for me when this was coming out, and like Gaga was in it. It was just, I think, and then the movie itself really didn't disappoint, but I think what it just showed that for me, he's such an interesting director to watch from this and from Maestro. His fascination with, I would say, artists in peril is really like at the top of the list for him, and also with the women that they interact with relationships, the struggle with addiction, or any kind of addiction really, whether it's like drugs and alcohol like in A Star Is Born, or a persona or the attention that you can get when you're in the spotlight, right? In Maestro, and not being able to escape that. I think he's really emerged as one of the like most interesting actor turned directors that we have working today.
Erik, can you do me a favor?
Yeah.
I need you to finish the lyric, if you could. Or finish the line. Why do you look so good in those jeans? Next line, please.
No, we are not. We are not going through.
One of the greatest songs of all time ever put in a movie. It's so like.
Why'd you do that to me?
Hey, Erik, trivia.
Face.
Erik, trivia. Who introduces Allie at Saturday Night Live?
Oh, Alec Baldwin.
There you go. Good job, Bradley.
And Halsey is at the Grammys, right?
Yeah.
He's like, how great, Allie.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Like
how
so
great.
stupid.
The movie's such a silly, stupid movie. It's so good.
Bradley Cooper is fascinating as a director, like even more so than as an actor. What is this man doing? Who is he? I need to know everything.
Yeah.
This is such a funny situation where I sort of feel like this is exactly the movie that he was going to make.
Yeah.
And then Maestro became that times 10. And you can see you can see the path almost like
that on
too
Poppers.
Easily.
Yeah.
On a lot of things.
Yeah.
He's reining it in. He's trying.
Reining it in.
Is he though? I mean, I don't think anyone is going to love an accent or a voice as much as Bradley Cooper self-directing either.
But take another look at you.
No, my favorite line reading from A Star Is Born is this a gay bar?
Is this a gay bar?
Is this a gay bar?
It is a gay bar.
I love it so much. I'm like, what are you doing here? What is it that exactly that this voice is doing that I love so much?
I'll just pull over here. I'm gonna go in here and get a drink.
It's why having Sam Elliott as brother is so perfect, because they're basically just like having a gruff off, like the whole time.
It's the greatest. It's the greatest sequel to Roadhouse. We never know what we needed.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I didn't think about that, did you?
Don't bring him into it. He's tethered.
Oh, well.
Yes, especially with the reining it in line, which is pure Jake Gyllenhaal.
Well, if it was pure Jake Gyllenhaal, he'd get the money to make his Bernstein movie, but he never will.
How dare you? How dare you?
I'm just saying.
Hey, I can still love Cooper and this movie and Maestro and not be like totally hateful towards it.
Tell you that one of our favorite experiences last year was Sophia and I watching Erik's reactions during Maestro at the AFI screening. It was when the needle drops happened throughout the film, and
the REM needle drop is deranged.
Yeah, the shout sequences, the Tears for Fear sequence is fucking
no. The I can't believe we're not even talking about the movie we're talking about. The REM, the audacity of that.
Yeah.
It's like there's no way he's going to do that. Holy shit, he did that.
He got away with it.
Audacity. Mm-hmm. But
Audacity.
Star Is Born.
Yeah, Oh,
I think the really cool thing that he does, and it's actually a funny thing, is that in both of his films he has put his female co-lead really in the starring role, top billing, and just it's really kind of about them. But whether it is intentional or not, his performance is so almost dangerously lived in
yeah.
that's all I can watch. I love Gaga in this a lot, but this Star is Born is a Bradley Cooper film. That performance is there just isn't like a moment where I just didn't feel that it was a person named Jackson Maine that I know in like real life as a performer, as like a non-fictional person. It's insane how great he is from the get-go, from the live performance, that from the get-go. And I think this is an insane debut. And again, audacious to remake a film for the fourth time and then find something that feels completely cool and contemporary and believable, because it's, you know, it's in as many classic tropes as you can for a musician story, Hollywood story, rise and fall, all of it. I think it's great.
And I think what's interesting about this version of A Star is Born is like in the 37, or I mean the 54 is my favorite, or the 76, like you don't know anything really about the man at all. They're just kind of there. And here you really do feel a lot from Jackson as a character. I think for better or for worse, this is Bradley Cooper's movie, right? Like he does ultimately, he might try to convince you that it's about Allie, but it is not. It's a Jackson Maine movie, I think, in the same way that Maestro is still a movie about Leonard Bernstein. My thing with A Star is Born is that I think for the first half, it is the best movie of that year. It is just like blazing. You can see all of the Kubrick influences. It's great. And then I think once it does become more of a movie about Allie and we have that fall, that's when it does lose me a little bit. And I think is where Maestro, I think he kind of learned how to play with that a little bit more and to make it a bit more cohesive. I know that's probably a spicy take too. I know people really don't love Maestro, but I think that he improved that a bit in that movie for me.
I'm like dead
I think it's because he killed the female co-star and said, "This is my movie."
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it was just easier to do that. So instead of himself, he killed her.
Yeah,
kills her with like, and there's like 5 minutes left in that movie. But like, no, I feel like I mean, a lot of so much of Maestro is put on Carrie's shoulders in terms of looks and just perspective and everything. I agree with you, Sophia. Like, I feel like it's more balanced in Maestro. His direction is elevated from A Star is Born. But yeah, that first hour of A Star is Born is so fucking good that then the remaining part of that movie that I think is a bit of a mess, especially when like the agent manager character comes in and it becomes Allie's movie, and it basically feels almost like a Lady Gaga biopic because it's so. Because I think the setting of it in the modern day for me, that's what kind of like hurts it, because then it just feels like every generic pop star's sort of story that we see. But then of course the thing that kind of carries it forward is the trajectory of Jackson by the end, and then just like the final 5 minutes of the movie are really bring it back a little bit to that first hour. But you could feel in that first hour like, holy shit, Bradley Cooper's never just going to be an actor anymore. He's going to be an actor director probably for the rest of his fucking career, because there's just like that when they're sitting next to each other at the bar, and he's like got to put it like the finger on the nose thing or whatever, and you're just like fuck. Or they're in with the peas and in the parking lot, and you're like, well, shit,
so good.
This guy's got the goods, and yeah, I liked Maestro. I mostly liked A Star Is Born, and I can't wait to see what he does next. I mean, yeah, we can go to talk about Barbara if you want. Talk about Yentl.
Well, it's just the reason I went there is because I think for a while
Licorice Pizza.
Licorice Pizza, yes, but for a while I thought that Bradley Cooper was really trying to be Warren Beatty, but then I realized he's actually trying to be Barbara Streisand,
especially at the SAG Awards. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They are just, I think, really connected. And
Well,
Warren Beatty, it's not really the Warren Beatty Bradley Cooper thing anymore for me. It's Barbara. And I think one of the things really about Streisand, Yentl wasn't really even on my list. I just thought that it could be a nice segue to talk about her. But I think that she, in a similar way to Bradley Cooper, really understands drama and the importance of the actors in the movie and the stories that you want to tell as a director. But I think what she does here in this movie is that it does feel, I think, very transportive. It has that effect to it. And she also is playing a lot with the camera. And that's something that Cooper does too in A Star Is Born and in Maestro. And she has these, I think there's some really good long takes in the movie. I think she shows off really how impressive she is by the camera, and also how she understands the actors in front of it too.
Yeah. Erik, you like Yentl?
I love Yentl.
Sing it for me, Erik.
No, I will not, but Papa Can You Hear Me is absolutely like an all-timer. I love
Erik,
that song.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I saw this in the theater. I was 12.
I was going to ask. Most of these you've probably seen in the theater.
Absolutely. These were all theatrical viewings for me. It is really kind of funny to make such a direct comparison to Cooper and Streisand, because I think it's deadly accurate in just a certain amount of thirstiness, obviously, and snubbery as well. But there is this adventurous sense with Streisand here, the way that there is with Cooper, where unlike some of the directors we're talking about, it makes perfect sense. This makes perfect sense as a directorial feature for her. But funnily enough, it doesn't feel as here's what I learned from Funny Girl, or really anything like that at all.
No,
it feels like her. It just doesn't. I like that. It feels it's such a individual vision. And she gave us the hottest Mandy Patinkin ever. Goodness gracious. No, I love it. I love it
too. And then she didn't direct that many films, but they're mostly all really great. And yeah, oh my God, Mandy Patinkin.
My other take is that she should have directed the 76 A Star Is Born, because I want to see it.
I think, yeah, she really should have. Yeah, some movie. I mean,
there's a lot of drama with her on that, but
there's a lot of stuff like where she was basically kind of doing it, but she didn't.
I was just gonna say,
like editing. She
had her hands in the cookie jar, but she didn't get nearly. Yeah, but that movie is also a mess. Can I talk briefly about somebody that transition from Barbara to somebody else? The thing about also these films too is I talked about earlier is that they can peak real early, and talk about somebody that like really peaked early. and they made a really strong, I think, directorial debut. Made their best movie with their second film, and has not really made a movie ever since. The quality of these two is George Clooney, and I think Confessions of a Dangerous Mind is such a. It's right around the time of him and his Ocean's 11 sort of like Solaris comeback. You know, he's about to get the Oscar in a couple of years, and Clooney starts cashing in, and he gives this great vehicle for Sam Rockwell to play Chuck Barris, who's phenomenal. He's got Drew Barrymore in it. Clooney's in the minor role, not in the lead role, which is great. And, you know, there's cameos from like Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, and Julia Roberts, and all your, you know, it's very much like what we said about Reds, where he's getting all his friends to come in and just do these, like this one scene, but it's, you know, something that's Clooney's been very interested in for years, which is, you know, politics and genre films, as well as also stories based on a true person. And Chuck Barris's story is such an interesting one, whether you believe any of it or not. Almost falls almost into this, like some weird Oliver Stone kind of territory. And the movie so distinctly almost feels like it's made under the lens of like a television movie. And how it's kind of like made on like this grimy, nasty television, because that's kind of like how you maybe saw the Gong Show way back when. And then obviously it's more pristine and proper and you know, with Good Night and Good Luck and the black and white photography, and they kind of really blend well together. I told Sophia and Erik something before I get your thoughts on the film, if you guys have seen it. I told them early before I was doing some research, and I was just looking into Clooney's filmography, which is like The Monuments Men and Suburbicon and the Midnight whatever crap that came out on Netflix and The Boys in the Boat and shit like that. That's just bad. And then I saw that he's directing a television adaptation, potentially for Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, like a miniseries. And Rockwell's going to do one of them. And they, on IMDb right now, it has who is going to play Chuck Barris. And when I saw it, I went, gross, don't want it, don't need it. It's Justin Timberlake. So something that's, once again,
read the room, Clooney.
Was watching that movie today and going like, Rockwell is incredible in that movie. We have like a, you know, kind of also low key hot in that movie, and yeah, just completely interesting now that even this movie is going to have a tarnished reputation. But have you guys seen Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, Sophia? Have you seen this one?
I have. It's been a while though. But Clooney as a director, very
so interesting.
Yeah, because I do like the first two. I like Good Night and Good Luck more.
I like it a lot.
But then we just get into like, I forgot about the Tender Bar.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about the Tender Bar.
And how that movie looks like it was stuck in a tanning bed for a bit and then taken out.
Like Bradley Cooper in Star is Born.
Like Bradley Cooper. Great.
I like Ides of March, but it's got really nothing to do with his direction. It's more of the screenplay from Williman, which is like almost like it's like an audition to then do House of Cards, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's one of those things with him where it's kind of like, you know, he has some potentially coming up, and it's just like, will it match those early days, or do we have to just expect these to be bad now, because that's what we're used to? Yeah,
because he had so much promise with this movie, and
I like it. I think its subversiveness is really admirable, in not wanting to be just a staid biopic. So I think the choice of doing this as a first film was kind of wild, kind of weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did feel like it was very infused with an Ocean's 11 mentality. Very not
like
that
I saw what Steven's doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It felt a little bit copycat. And yes, everything he's done pretty much since then, I could just chuck right in the bin. Absolutely.
But did you like Good Night and Good Luck?
It's good.
Oh God, here we go.
Yeah, it's good. That stands out obviously amongst the rest of his filmography. I'm not saying that it's a bad movie. It's good. Yeah, Monuments Men, absolutely not. No. I love
Good Night and Good Luck. That's my favorite film.
No,
from
I know.
that year,
I'm not.
from that year. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, because you're homophobic, but that's okay.
I don't even think
Fine.
Ang Lee would like that movie that you're talking about anymore. It seems like he's just like saying, I don't like 3D. I don't like this movie or that movie anymore. No, I wouldn't. That would actually be third in my lineup because Munich also exists too. And Munich's an amazing film too. Talk bad about Munich. Do it. I dare you. Talk bad about the subject matter.
The editing of the sex scene, kind of wonky.
Yeah, that's true.
If you want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. But
You
want to
talk about Munich? Let's talk about Munich. No,
we're not talking about that.
No, but it is one of those like too where it goes back to like Cassie Lemons where you're just like, why did all this really interesting, great potential, then you see the sort of it all kind of go downhill. Well, a little bit less for Clooney, but then right after Good Night and Good Luck, it goes all down that way. Mm-hmm. Someone that I think, who was in the Tinder Bar with Clooney that started off really strong was Ben Affleck. I love Gone Baby Gone. It's a really good movie. It's just kind of a simple approach to, just kind of being a procedural, but him not even being anywhere in that film too also really works for him. And it's still one of his better films. Actually, I actually think it might be his best film still.
I probably say This Car Smells Like Cock like at least once.
I just really only said that so like that Eric could do that.
Like literally, that's not even like for a joke. I say that at least once a week because it's like one of my favorite like lines of anything.
Great nomination.
Yeah, I love it.
Really
It's kind of inspired.
Sophia, Eric, do you guys have any more?
You have 20 things on your list. I have a million things. I'd like to. Maybe if we could just kind of run through them without having like
let's
full
do
conversations.
That sounds good.
Because I think there's some that
we're wrapping up. That's why I was
a little left of center and a little also obvious. I think Billy Bob Thornton's Sling Blade is one of the best films of the 90s. Absolutely brutal and devastating and gorgeous and a great performance. Actually, the very first thing I put on my list was a movie that I was like very impactful. And then he only made one other film as a director after that. And it was Bill Paxton's Frailty from 2002.
Oh,
absolutely one of my very, very favorite movies of that year. I think McConaughey is fantastic. I think it's when he was good before he really he's way too up his own ass now.
Well, no, but like the McConaissance, he was very good during the McConaissance.
Whatever. No,
for God's sakes. All right.
No, he peaked. He peaked way back here.
He peaked at Frailty. That's when he peaked. Okay.
Yep.
Right.
Way
I'm
back
trying
here.
to think of where he peaked for me.
Yeah.
Was it?
I was the guy in 10 days.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
No,
you guys didn't like him during the McConaissance? He's got like Magic Mike and Killer Joe and
I
Bernie
do.
and all
I actually like him a lot in The Beach Bum.
Yeah, that's probably the last good thing he did. Maybe.
Wow.
Yeah. I love it. I think the last very good movie he had was Interstellar, and that was ever since then it's been kind of like him chasing whatever the fuck he's doing. I don't even know what he's doing anymore. There's no purpose. There's no rhyme or reason to it anymore. He's just
no.
He looked unwell at the Oscars too.
Yeah. It's just a bad, ever since that speech, it's kind of gone fucking downhill for him. You know what I mean? I'm my hero. I'm just chasing him. Kind of.
Glenn Powell took the Texas.
He picked up the mantle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Work with Linklater.
As he should.
Yeah.
As he should.
Damn right. Did you have more, Eric? You want to run off?
Yeah. Sarah Polly's Away From Her. I love that. The second renaissance of Julie Christie. Absolutely brilliant, wonderful performance. I love Drew Barrymore's Whip It. I think that is so much fun.
Whip It's so good.
It's so fun.
I need her to make another movie. Take a week off or take a couple weeks off from the talk show and make another movie, Drew.
I would adore if she did something again that was just with spirit like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Lost Daughter very, very much.
Good for you.
Love that movie. You don't need to say anything about it.
I mean,
Um,
brought to you by sleeping pills. All right.
I think Robert De Niro's A Bronx Tale from '93 is
Mhm.
an A+ coming of age story, and a really neat example of clearly all of his influences are on his sleeve there, but it just feels
It feels smaller and more personal
Yeah.
than like the scopeness of a Scorsese film.
it's not
just
trying
about-
to be
No,
a big
it's-
Yeah,
Scorsese
it's his
film.
own thing.
Yeah, it's
I
just about
loved that.
it's within that world, but it's just about like this boy being tugged between
Yeah.
his father and his idol essentially.
Yeah.
And De Niro's such an interesting director too. Like he's like that and The Good Shepherd. Like
Mm-hmm.
I love that movie. Not many people did at the time, but he's just got he's saying interesting things about the sort of genre that he's like lived in for or known for. And yeah, I would love to see him maybe. I mean, he probably won't do one more, but
I don't think so. I don't think I need to see him make another movie. He's good.
like ever or as
No,
a
direct
director.
one.
Oh,
No,
okay.
he's fine. He's
I
good.
mean,
He's
he was
fine.
great last year.
And the last one I'll put is DGA first time director winner Bo Burnham for 8th Grade. Even though it
have
goes
it too.
against so much of my moral and ethic and personal beliefs right now.
I was just gonna say I can't believe you spoke blasphemy for
It-
yourself on
it-
this podcast.
It took a great deal for me to put him on that list because he beat Bradley Cooper that year, and
Paul.
and all the other stuff that is happened at the DGA Awards.
I gotta tell you, not a big fan of that movie. So
Oh, I love
I
8th
liked
Grade.
it.
I love it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a Bo Burnham guy. Yeah,
Mm.
sorry.
That's pretty much my list.
Yeah, okay. All right, Sophia.
Yeah, I also had 8th grade. I know on our 2018 episode, I said I apologize to all the Mescalites, Paul fans, for putting 8th grade on my list.
He's not gonna have lunch with you
But-
at Sweetgreens if you keep it up. If you keep
Well,
it
I
up.
mean, now he's not with Phoebe anymore, so maybe we can have lunch at Sweet Green.
good. Yeah. Good for
I
him.
also have Away from Her on my list. And then just some
Yay.
of my other ones to run through. Shadows, John Cassavetes. I think when you think about Cassavetes, he is like the perfect example of a director who understands actors and who is able
Yeah.
to get these towering, scary, explosive performances out of them. And this is really, I think, the first instance where we start to see that. And he's just phenomenal as an actor too. Like in Rosemary's Baby, terrifying. Ugh, hot too. I also love Todd Field's In the Bedroom. I forget sometimes too of
I
him
just
as
forgot
a
about that.
actor, director, but this like
Nick
when we
Nightingale.
think about actors who become directors and the performances that they get out of their actors, but also like he doesn't register to me as an actor turned director, and I don't mean that in like a pejorative sense, but he just feels kind of different from the rest of the pack because he has such a distinctive style. He feels more to me like a Glazer, like someone who is clearly trained by Kubrick, has just an incredible visual language. And I mean, In the Bedroom is just this. I mean, the Wilkinson performance, Sissy Spacek, it is just. I remember the first time I saw that movie being just so blown away by it. That's also a very Sophia coded movie.
Like the heir
also-
apparent to Ordinary People almost.
Yeah, very much so. So much meaner too. Like
Oh
it's-
yeah, like it's going for the
Yeah.
jugular in that thing.
Yeah, it hurts. Also,
That sissy slap. Ooh.
the sissy slap. Yeah, she can do.
I think
anything.
about that all the time.
I think about Jack a lot with that slap.
Mhm.
So, yeah. What'd you do, Mr. Fisk?
Oh, I love him.
I love him.
Also Charles Laughton's The Night of the Hunter. Another example.
Yes.
Just one movie, but like a very powerful directorial debut and just kind of a one and done. But there are images from this movie that will stick with me for a very long time. One that I love to return to. And the Robert Mitchum performance is just great. And then my last one, cheating a little bit because it's a solo directorial debut in the same way that Reds was for Warren Beatty, Greta Gerwig's Lady Bird. I think it's just such a lights out, wonderful, warm directorial debut. I love that movie so much. And 2017 had some great ones with that and Get Out.
I mean, for real.
Yeah.
What a year.
Yeah, I mean, these guys stole most of mine, but that's okay. Tom Hanks, That Thing You Do, is such a fun movie, and I mean,
that
like,
song's gonna be in my head now.
You're welcome. Yeah, I love that film. I mean, it's very much, it feels like the Tom Hanks we know, like America's Dad would totally make a movie like that. There's no question about that. But it's just a fun, sweet little movie. Larry Crown was his follow-up, and that's not very good. Easy Rider, Peter Fonda. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I know that it is revered as an American classic, and great performances. 3 performances there. Eric Manson Dances with Wolves. Another. We're getting more Costner later this year. Eric's excited about that. Horizon, #1 movie of the year for Eric.
How dare you?
I'm sorry. Olivier's 1944 Henry V, which won Best Picture. If you've ever seen it, it's one of the definitive versions of that. And then we didn't mention this at the 2004 episode, and it's a relic of its time, but it's just an interesting film to talk about. Garden State. We didn't talk about that.
I hate Garden State.
I hate Garden State too.
One of my least favorite movies of all time. I felt so duped when I finally ended up watching this, and I was like, "Oh yeah, new slang. That's the best part about it. Maybe the only good part."
I just wanted to bring it up because I knew it was going to probably bring a visceral reaction to the end of this podcast. I almost
guessed it for the Razzies trivia on that episode, but then I
no, it was very acclaimed at the time, so it's been. Yeah, but then like the sort of well, that's what happens when you. But it's also an example of when you do have a power, I guess, or a name brand recognition, and then over time you realize that movie is not very good, nor has anything Zach Braff done ever since.
Yeah,
Florence knew, that's why she got out, and yeah, it is definitely a relic of its era of 2004. It was one that when I was looking up movies, I was like, God, I don't think we talked about that one at all, which is great. But also, it's one that I thought we should bring up today.
We didn't get sassy Josh's perspective.
Oh, I would have loved to hear what Josh had to say about Garden State. Damn it! No, we missed out.
It is definitely one of those products of its time.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, and so. Okay, that's going to be this week's episode. We're ending on Garden State. Wonderful. So, Sophia, can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim, where I post a lot of Diane Keaton and Reds related things. So go watch that movie. And you can find me on Letterboxd at Sophia Sim. You can find my podcast that I host with AwardsWatch contributor Nick Rurkraut at Oscar Wilde Pod. We have our new season starting this week where we reviewed The Godfather Part 2 at 50. So excited about that. And you can find all of my reviews, interviews, more podcasts at AwardsWatch.
Go and check it out. Gee, I wonder how long was that Godfather Part 2 episode, Sophia? Do we have an intermission for that one?
We like keeping things tight.
You're cutting it down. You're doing like a coda edition of that movie too.
It'll be less than the first part up to intermission, I would say.
Okay, all right, awesome. Go listen to that, please. Eric, can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet, sir?
Well, hopefully, if you're here, you're already coming to awardswatch.com, and then you can find me on socials at AwardsWatch and Twitter awards_watch, and sign up for the newsletter, please. Thank you.
You can find all my work here at awardswatch.com, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Ryan McQuade 77. If you like podcasts, every Thursday we have the Director Watch podcast. We're in the middle of Sophia Coppola series, but this week we have Sophia Ciminello on to talk about Marie Antoinette. It's Sophia on Sophia. It's Jay and I didn't even talk. It was her for 2 straight hours. It's one of the great episodes of our time. But no,
honestly, that could have just been like the subtitle of the whole series is Sophia on Sophia.
There you go.
Yeah.
Who would not have loved that?
Yeah, no, for sure. It was a great episode. I highly encourage everybody to go and listen to it. One of my favorite conversations that we've had so far on this series, for sure.
We're bringing Emmy podcasts back, so those will be rolling out next week. Yeah, maybe so almost just after you listen to this.
Yeah, like 3 podcasts in 1 week from the Awards Watch team. That's a lot.
Who doesn't want to spend all that time with us? Come on.
So if that's the case, you can go on iTunes and Spotify and give us 5 stars for all that wonderful content that we're doing. Also, go on the website, sign up for the newsletter. The newsletter is where Erik puts it together maybe twice a week, sometimes only once, if he's not being lazy. Where you can get
all the news is fit to print, Ryan. Sometimes it's a short week.
All the news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, all sent to you, readily available once a week or twice a week. And it's a great way to catch up on everything that's going on the site. You can go sign up for that at awardswatch.com. Next week, we will be back. We will be talking about the very... Is it next week is the very divisive film that is Civil War from A24 and Alex Garland. So we'll be talking about that film. We'll also be talking about our top 5, maybe, or just a general discussion over political thrillers and our favorite political thrillers. Surely there's nothing controversial about a movie called Civil War coming to theaters. So, but maybe we'll have a lot to say about that next week. So thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you all next time.